Atheist Nomads, episode 248. Is science broken?
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to the episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin, and I have Lauren joining me.
Hello!
I already tried recording this episode once, and I was in a dark place yesterday, and Lauren had a migraine. And
He determined it was too dark and depressing, so we're redoing it.
Well, like the is science broken part, it was all doom and gloom, and that's not good.
No. Especially
when talking about science.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that was bad. That was bad. Bad, Dustin, bad. Anyway, yeah, I'm sure Lauren is getting pretty tired of hearing me bitch and complain about the world.
No, it's a daily. It's just part of your life.
But with this area, there's some of these that I want to move past, but I keep on getting stuck on.
Oh, gee. It's like you're you or something.
Yes, I am. I am.
That's just how you are.
I am me. So, like, when you look around the world at science and the views that people have about science, people have a lower trust and faith in science now than they have, at least as long as there's been modern science. Right.
Well, a large part of that might have a little something to do with government propaganda, but
even before that, the public trust, i.e., the public of science, was declining, and it has been for quite a few years. And there are legitimate problems with science, and there are illegitimate reasons that people don't trust it. And there are legitimate reasons that people don't trust it.
Yeah.
And it is, like, I know I'm having this problem with looking at technology and data and the conspiracy theories and reality and what seems realistically reasonable. And there are times where the conspiracy theories seem to be closer to reality than not.
Well, yeah, there are some cases where that is true. Keeping paranoia in check is a very difficult thing to do these days online.
Yeah.
When every aspect of your life is available for somebody to mine it for ad reasons or political targeting or something. It's hard to not be skeptical and a little paranoid about it. It's just whether or not you're willing to trade that privacy for convenience.
Now, of course, that's not the topic today. We've already discussed that probably to death on the show already. The topic, but the reason why, part of why I can kind of understand is there are people who have that same, you look at the health and science and medical conspiracy theories and the propaganda coming from industry, and you compare the two, and what does reality seem to look more like? And depending on your values and what propaganda you're getting from what sources, it can be really easy to fall on the wrong side of that. And in some cases, it can be really hard to find what the right side of that even is.
Yeah, if you don't even know where to look, how are you expected to be able to differentiate statistical anomaly or statistical significance in a research study that is buried in some journal? I mean, that's not what the average person can comprehend.
So I can totally understand why there are people that are not trusting of science. On the other hand, science is amazing and wonderful and has done unthinkably amazing things.
Like saved our baby.
Yeah.
Or saved my life.
Saved my life.
Yeah.
None of the three of us would be alive if not for science.
Yeah.
My mom would not have, aside from the fact that I would not have survived childhood without science, a little thing called antibiotics, I wouldn't have been born if not for radiation and chemotherapy, because my mom would have died. We can feed a population of over 7 billion right now, when 100 years ago, the maximum population that agriculture would be able to support would have been about 2 billion. The current population at that time, we've been able to defeat bacteria. Okay, they're coming back. We've eradicated smallpox. We have nearly eradicated polio. Measles has been driven out of numerous countries. Life expectancy has more than doubled in 100 years. Science has done amazing and wonderful things. Heck, we have put people on the fucking moon.
Yeah, if you think about from the time that people were first able to fly a machine to the time that they were able to get to the moon, that's
and back.
Ridiculously short amount of time.
Yeah, just getting to the moon is ridiculous. Be able to get to the moon, land, get back to their spacecraft, and return to Earth
alive.
It's incredible. We have spacecraft that have left our solar system.
Yeah. Mind-boggling. It is truly amazing. But we're fans of science. Right. It's almost a religion in and of itself.
Now, all of that is amazing and wonderful and good, but there is also some not so good in science, especially, and this is one of the areas where it can get, I have seen people get elitist with types of science, where there are the real sciences, the
hard science.
Oh, not even hard versus soft. The theoretical versus the applicable.
Oh, yeah.
If it can actually be applied to life, it's not real science. That is such bullshit.
What, like physics? Like the different...
So like physics
theoretical
and
physics versus
biology
physics.
Is good. Not even like that. Biology is good. Medicine is lesser.
Oh, so the distilled version of
it's the application of it. Okay. Engineering isn't science.
That's
physics is.
Oh, yeah.
Physics is applying, or engineering is applying physics. Medicine is applying biology.
Well, yeah. If you really want to be picky, just call it applied science. It's still science.
And it is science.
It's the more interesting, honestly.
But when you look at it, the purely theoretical, the stuff that is not marketable to people is
Unless
the most
it's part of the Big Bang Theory TV show. It
is the most pure. Big, outstanding, and amazing advancing in research is what will get your paper to go viral. The more you can advance the knowledge and cause of science, the greater the standing you'll have in your field.
Standing in a field. Sorry. Old joke.
And it has been able to keep a lot more pure that way. When you look at some of the more applied sciences, and in particular areas around health, all of that can be marketed by a plethora of massive businesses and entire industries. And a lot of that research that's going on is being funded by these businesses. If you want pure science to be as clean as possible, you want it to be funded by independent sources like the government, private foundations.
Universities?
That's government. That's still government.
Yeah.
But what you end up seeing in the health field is a whole lot of science that is being done by businesses to promote their product or to get their product to market. Most of the research we have into antibiotics and heart medications and cancer treatments and all of that is being done by pharmaceutical companies so that they can patent and sell drugs. That's okay. That's all good. They're making stuff that is saving lives. When you look at food, everything we know about food, the basic concept that modern nutrition is based on, as it turns out, was based on corporate propaganda.
Yeah, and this is not news to some people, but is news to most.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the idea that a high-fat diet is the one thing that's going to cause heart disease and kill you. It's not really the case.
Yeah, in the 1960s, there was a lot of research going into cardiac issues that were growing at a rapid pace, and researchers were scratching their heads, and they were trying to find what was the culprit, and they got down to the two leading contenders, fat and sugar. And the preponderance of the research was starting to point to sugar as the problem, when a lobbying group for the sugar industry went to a member of their board who was the head of a department at Harvard and gave him $50,000 adjusted for inflation to make sugar look good. And so he did. He did a massive review paper where he went through all of the papers on sugar and fat and pointed out all of the flaws in the research around fat and ignored all the flaws in the research that was saying that sugar was okay, and painted the picture of fat as the problem and won the debate. He never reported his biases. He never reported where the funding was coming from. No matter how you look at it, what he did was absolutely terribly unethical and has resulted in public policy and general nutritional advice and the entire development of the modern food industry based on corporate lies.
Not to mention the health of, hundreds of thousands of people who are suffering from diabetes now.
Yep. So it's no wonder that there are a lot of people that don't trust science around food, especially the people who can afford to buy the more expensive products of massive corporations that have managed to figure out very clever ways to do very insidious and suggestive marketing to convince you that their product is healthier and safer by promoting buzzwords like natural and organic. Those are big businesses just like the others, and they are just as corrupt as the others, and they employ the same kinds of practices to keep smaller competitors out. The whole reason why there is a USDA organic label is because the big organic food companies didn't want little guys to be able to use the label too. So they forced the government into creating a standard that they could make sure that as few companies as possible could use. And USDA didn't want to do it because there's no evidence to suggest that organic food is healthier than conventional food. And they were afraid that they'd be giving the government seal of approval on the claims of the organic food industry. But successful lobbying efforts won out, and smaller competitors were disadvantaged. And a lot of people have bought into it. And a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about organic food, like people who think that it is pesticide-free. Nope. In fact, organic food uses nastier pesticides that have a lot less research, because they also manage to make sure that if it's considered organic, it's presumed safe. So the preponderance in evidence is you have to go out of your way to prove that it is dangerous, unlike the, quote, conventional pesticides like Roundup, where they had to go out of their way to prove that it is harmless.
Yeah.
And which one's the bad guy? Monsanto and Roundup.
Yeah.
Even though they have proven their products to be safe. And the guys who lobbied government agencies instead of going through the effort to do science to demonstrate their stuff is better, they won. And I think part of it comes down to just the problem that marketing is easier than science. And scientists are notoriously, like any experts in any field, are terrible communicators about their field. Because you know too much, you know the jargon, and it is really hard to communicate it in a way that is easy for the average person to understand. And when you fall into that problem, it's impossible to get your message across.
Especially when the literacy of the average American has dropped so much. Mm-hmm. What people can understand on a scientific topic from the 50s is tons more than what it is nowadays. We've basically gone from an average of, I think is an 8th grade level of understanding down to about a 3rd grade level of understanding.
Wow.
If you want to get your point across to somebody, you have to talk to them as if they were a 3rd grader.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's not true for everybody. There's lots of, people who are, above that. But for the average American, that's your target.
Wow.
So the explain it like I'm 5 thing, mm-hmm. That's why that's so popular, because people can't understand some of the basic science that goes behind this stuff.
Now, so one of the problems this has created is if you're doing scientific research and you want to get it out into the public, you need to get it picked up by science writers or media sites. And then they will write about it and get it to more eyes and get it on blogs and podcasts. And it'll get picked up by the Today Show and Fox News, and it'll be all over the place.
Daily Mail. But I have a thing against Daily Mail.
But if you want to get your research into that direction, if you want it to go viral, it has to be the right research. It has to be sensational. It can't be a replication study because nobody cares about replication. You can't be publishing your negative studies because saying
nobody cares.
It doesn't work. Nobody cares. Yeah, a few people in your field might, but the general public, no. But if you want to say that aspartame kills, yeah, that's going to get in the news. If you want to say that aspartame has been thoroughly demonstrated to be completely harmless and safe for consumption, nobody's going to care. That's not sensational. If you want to talk about what's going to cause heart attacks, yeah, people are going to listen to it. If you want to say that things that people want to do anyway is perfectly fine, people are going to listen. And it is perverse. And we have a number of areas where the answer is already predetermined by the media. There is a narrative that is acceptable. And so if you want to get your research into the media, you have to live up to that narrative, which means you have to produce research that all goes a certain direction. So we've got a lot of garbage research coming out about food. It sells ads on websites. We've got garbage research about electronic cigarettes. It sells ads on websites. Good solid research in either area. Some nutritionists are going to read it. A few doctors might read it. The average person will never see it. And that's sad. If we want to know why science is broken, it's us. I don't mean us as in the podcast or the podcast and its listeners, but it's the citizens, the people. We have screwed it up. Atheist Nomads is proudly brought to you by listeners just like you. You can find out how you can become a patron at patreon.com/atheistnomads. That's patreon.com/atheistnomads. While visiting Nairobi, Kenya, Russell Marion Nelson Sr., the president of the Mormon Church, addressed a crowd of over 2,000 and talked to them about tithing. He said, "We preach tithing to the poor people of the world because the poor people of the world have had cycles of poverty generation after generation. That same poverty continues from one generation to another until people pay their tithing."
That's just not true.
Yeah.
You can't prove that at all.
Well, and even worse than that.
If that were true, there'd be no poor Mormons or poor Catholics, and there are. There's millions of them.
But also, he used the term poverty, which has a very specific definition. It means that you don't have enough money to meet your basic needs, food, shelter, etc. And especially in places in the developing world, what it really means is you don't have enough money to be able to feed your children. So what he's saying is that people who can't feed their children need to give some of that money to the church and starve their children more.
Right. And if you talk to people who do tithing, they'll argue that the church will then provide food for the community or something along those lines. That just doesn't happen in a lot of these places.
Right. Well, especially since he's got a big goal of getting a temple in Kenya.
That's cute.
But Mormon temples require a lot of gold paint.
A lot of gold paint, a lot of white marble.
A lot of very expensive mirrors.
It's ridiculous.
And so he's going to ask a whole bunch of impoverished people to give them 10% of his money, or give him 10% of their money so that he can build a fancy building.
Well, it's the prosperity gospel, right? I mean, you give money to get money. Yeah. That's what he's promising these people. Mm-hmm. And when you are in poverty and you are desperate, of course you're going to buy into that. Anything is better than what you have now. Ugh, it's disgusting.
It is. And if he was actually serious about that taking care of the poverty, then the church should be giving their impoverished tithing members more money back, whether it's direct or in the form of filling their pantries. Oh, wait, these are people who don't have pantries. Yeah. Because they're poor.
Yeah.
It's just disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Of course, there is the more affluent people of Nairobi who would probably buy into it.
Yeah, except that wasn't who he was talking to.
No.
Deseret News, the Mormon newspaper, actually talked to a member who was there for that presentation, who talked about how he was going to change things in his family and he was going to start paying a tithe. And he was barely scraping by.
It's so sad.
Yeah. Yep. Mary McAllister and, quote, the activist mommy, Elizabeth Johnston, are working on a sex ed sit-out where they are trying to get parents to remove their kids from school in protest of graphic, gender-bending sexual education. To help promote this event, McAllister, who works as a senior litigation counsel for the Liberty Counsel, went on Cliff Kincaid's USA Survival program last week to promote the event. He asked her about her Twitter bio, where she includes the line that she is working to, quote, stop the satanic sexualization of her children and the destruction of the family. Here's her response.
God has made us all in his image. He has set out for us rules for living that enable us to live rich and full and healthy lives. And all of this that's going on now is directly aimed at tearing all of that down. Well, we know who does that. That's the enemy. That's Satan and his minions.
I always think it's hilarious when people talk about Satan and his minions as if they were real things.
Satan and his minions are the ones behind sex ed.
Yes. Oh, man.
So her goal is obviously to have kids follow the traditional Christian plan, which is not getting good sex ed. So that way, when a girl gets knocked up as a teenager, she gets married and doesn't get an education, doesn't get a career, stays home and raises 18 billion kids while being ruled over by her husband and taking the kids to church while the husband stays home and drinks beer and watches football. Yeah, that's the goal here.
Yeah, basically, good old American values. Well, so is the way of Satan.
Uh-huh.
And his minions. I love that. The minions. Oh my gosh. I just imagine the little minions from South Park.
Yeah. It also fits perfectly with what happened behind closed doors at the annual UN Commission on the Status of Women, where the United States delegation came in to the right of such notable human rights champions as Russia and the Arab world. Yes, our representatives came from the U.S.'s UN delegation, Health and Human Services, and USAID, and they demanded that contraception, abortion, and comprehensive sex ed be removed from the standards for what the UN calls for to improve the status and rights of women around the world. And they also called on all women's health programs to promote abstinence-only sex ed.
That is just ridiculous. I can't believe that these people got sent. Like, no, I can believe it because that's who was elected. That's people elected.
Yep.
Trump and Pence, and this is what you get.
Yep.
And America looks like, well, we're a laughingstock.
Now, what's interesting here is if you look at who voted for Trump, evangelical Christians voted for Pence in all practicality, and white nationalists voted for Trump. Well, evangelical Christians definitely got what they wanted. And, oh man, when they got some pushback, their response at this event was that the U.S. is a pro-life country.
Hardly.
Not in our laws. According to current good precedent, not according to our Constitution, and not in the eyes of a majority of the population.
Yeah, they sent a couple of blowhards, and that reflects poorly on the nation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we deserve to be ridiculed.
Now, fortunately, most of the rest of the countries present all joined together against these Christian nationalist blowhards, and some of them even included very conservative countries that actually are pro-life, where abortion is illegal. And they all backed full, comprehensive family planning.
If you are anti-abortion, you have to be pro-family planning. It's the only way out.
Yeah. Yep. If you want more abortions in the world, don't tell girls how to not get pregnant.
Yeah. Let them try and figure it out for themselves, because that's worked.
Mm-hmm. If you want less abortion in the world, make sure that girls learn where babies come from and how to not get pregnant. Make sure that boys learn where babies come from and how to not get a girl pregnant. And make sure that all of the tools and resources needed to avoid pregnancy until you're ready are available.
Which includes birth control. Big time. Condoms, not enough, because, well, I hate to say it, but boys are boys and don't use them very well. So, yeah, it does. Unfortunately, it is the responsibility of girls to kind of take care of it. And they need to have that free and easily accessible. Because, yeah, their parents aren't going to do it for them.
If your goal is to improve the status and rights of women, the only way to do that is to put women in charge of when and if they get pregnant.
Yep. Baby making slavery. That's all it is.
Uh-huh. President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda wants to ban oral sex because the mouth is for eating.
Oh, it's kind of like that thing you were telling me about Catholics. Is it Catholics that you were saying? Is like, do you kiss your mother with that mouth? Where
No, that wasn't me that was talking about that.
No, that wasn't. Okay. Well, anyway, it's the basic premise is that there are certain things that like a man won't do with his wife.
The Madonna whore complex.
Yeah, he'll do with his mistress because she's not, she's already impure. But the wife, she's not allowed to do those things such as oral because she has to care for the children, and you don't want that mouth anywhere near your children.
And this guy, he views oral sex as being something that's been introduced from foreign outsiders, which would assume that the people of Uganda hadn't already been able to figure out that you can do stuff with your mouth. One thing, though, that he obviously doesn't get, because, his big concern is that the mouth is for eating food. But when he just said it's for eating, he missed that a lot of people refer to oral sex as either eating pussy or eating cock. Yep, the mouth is for eating. We love hearing from our listeners. You can email us at contact@atheistnomads.com, tweet us @atheistnomads, send us a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/atheistnomads, or better yet, call us and leave us a message at 541-203-0666. We might even play it on the show. You can also help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcast directory of choice. So yeah, we've been working on sleep training, Kylie, and managed to pull it off during the break.
Well, I managed to lay her down.
I think
she is being quiet, so we'll see.
I think it's going well, and I am very proud of the successes we are having and the progress we are making, and how well she's doing, and how well we've both been able to successfully do it.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that when I got her to sleep last night, that I didn't have to basically start all over. That was pretty awesome. So yes, progress. So we got a little bit of feedback that I missed last week, actually. So need to get that in now. We got Randy via Facebook saying, have a nearly 1-year-old in the house. Baby sounds don't bother me in the slightest. Thank you, Randy. That is definitely helpful to hear, because I can be hypercritical of background noises, and between the Chihuahua and the baby, it can be a little tough to clean things up to live up to my own standards. So I'm glad to hear it doesn't bother you. I'm sure it does bother some, though. And from Brian NXX via YouTube, I say abortion legal, but if you have a kid, you are criminally responsible for that kid. Shoot up the school death penalty for the parents. Holy fuck. Wow, Brian, that is quite a bit over the top. Yeah, I have a baby, so it's going to be a few years before she can really do anything that could realistically get me in trouble. But kids are kids. They do things. They are their own individual people. Yes, there's a certain amount of culpability parents should have. However, executing parents for the behavior of their children is something completely out of the Bible. That is Iron Age, ridiculous, unthinkable, horrible bullshit. I don't know if I'm coming across strongly enough on that. But yeah, harsh punishments for parents for the actions of their children is as draconian as you can get. Parents definitely do have an element of culpability if they are actually involved in the crime that happened, such as if the parents are the owners of the gun and don't keep it properly secured, or in an incredibly over-the-top example, the father of the Waffle House shooter, who, after the police took Ranking's guns away from him, gave them to his dad, who then gave them back to his son. When the police seize weapons, you don't return them to the unstable person that the police took them from. I don't know what kind of charges his dad should get, but he is definitely an accessory in this crime, or at least was horribly criminally negligent. And that's even considering the fact that the shooter is 29 years old, not a child. So yes, parents should, to a reasonable extent, and especially with minor children, should have some culpability. But the culpability and the punishment should be appropriate for the amount of involvement they had in the crime. And executing them is always over the top. And I don't even think mass shooters should get executed. So anyway, rethink that Iron Age Christian bullshit. All right, let's get back to news. The Freedom from Religion Foundation has won a 7-0 decision in the New Jersey Supreme Court to make sure that taxpayer funds aren't used to repair any church buildings.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it is, the New Jersey state constitution includes in it a ban on taxpayer funds being used for this purpose. And so obviously they sued Morris County, which was giving grants of millions of taxpayer dollars to repair or maintain churches.
As what, like historical places or just...
Yes.
There's always some little loophole. Yeah.
Since 2012, they had given churches $5.5 million as part of the Historic Preservation Trust Fund. The lawsuit specifically challenged a $1.04 million allotment to a single Presbyterian church.
Wow.
In the church's own words, it would allow continued use by our congregation for worship services.
Yeah. That's not historical preservation.
No.
Yeah. No. That's, yeah.
There was another one with money going to St. Peter's Episcopal Church to ensure, quote, continued safe public access to the church for worship. So whether this was in violation of...
Isn't that what tithing is for? Isn't that what the congregation basket is for?
Depending on the denomination, tithing or offerings. Like in the Adventist church, tithing goes to support the larger church structure and pay pastor salaries. It's offerings that are given beyond tithing that are used for the local church budget, including the building.
Yeah. Now, I get the preservation of historical buildings. That is, and churches especially, because they were so often architecturally unique and magnificent. But yeah, you gotta draw the line there.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'm glad that they got sued. It's unfortunate that this happened in the first place. I mean, God, they just did it stupidly. They could have at least tried to do it under the radar.
Or at least not said that it was to allow them to continue worship.
Stupid. That was stupid.
That's dumb. If you're wanting to do something like that...
Be sneaky and learn from your mistakes.
And there are cases where I would actually support taxpayer historical site preservation funds going to churches, but it'd have to be in very, very narrowly limited, very carefully reviewed, and very carefully considered ways.
Yeah, like payment of building materials for preservation or...
And I would also limit it to maintaining if cases where it goes beyond just maintaining a normal building, but it's extra costs required to maintain the historical structure. I would be okay with, say, the exterior molding was very ornate. You can't buy it commercially because they don't do it like that anymore. So you have to hire a craftsman to custom make it. I would probably be okay with taxpayer money going to that, but only in the cost for maintenance that go beyond what normal maintenance for that structure would be.
Right. Yeah.
And even that I wouldn't be fully comfortable with because it is a church, and taxpayer money going to church is sketchy at best and probably bad. And in this case, I am glad that they won.
Yeah.
And especially when the law is very clear that taxpayer funds cannot be used for building or maintaining any church or churches, you got to follow the law.
Yeah.
A school bus driver in the Twin Cities area of Minnesota, who was an employee of Quality Care Transportation and was driving schools to Nasha Shkola, a Russian language and culture charter school.
Wait, you mean he was driving students?
Did I say he was driving the schools? Yes, he was driving students to and from the school. Yeah. And parents started to complain about him forcing students to pray.
Man, if it gets back to the parents and the parents are the ones that have to complain, you've gone way too far.
Well, also, presumably, since there's a large Russian community in that community, and it's a Russian language and culture charter school that is probably being mostly attended by immigrants and children of immigrants from Russia who are more than likely Russian Orthodox, they aren't going to want a Protestant Christian pastor.
Yeah.
Because, yes, he is a pastor forcing their children to pray in a way different than they would.
Yeah, no, totally wrong.
So anyway, in some ways, I've heard it described as he would spend the entire 2-hour bus ride leading the kids in prayer.
Oh, God.
He started doing assigned seating and would punish students by changing up the seating assignments if they weren't cooperative with the prayers.
Yeah, I would start throwing stuff in the back of his head. I would make his life a living hell.
And he got fired.
Good.
Yeah. It's one of the important things to keep in mind. He was working for a contractor for a publicly funded school, which means, while not an employee of the state, he was acting on behalf of the state.
Yeah, just because you're a contractor doesn't mean you get out of it.
Which means all of the same rules apply, such as not forcing your religion on children. Literally captive children. Yeah. The U.S. Senate has confirmed Representative Jim Bridenstine to be the NASA administrator.
Oh, God, this guy.
Bridenstine is a former Navy pilot.
Makes sense.
He was a representative from Oklahoma in the U.S. Congress. He has no scientific credentials, and he doesn't believe in climate change.
Which just goes right along with the Trump administration pushing earth sciences out of NASA. Climate change, tracking, any of that, he wants out. So, of course, he's going to put somebody in charge who doesn't even believe in it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man, it's absurd. Yeah. Absolutely absurd. If there's any department that needs to be run by a scientist, it's NASA.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a freaking scientific, well, of course, look at the rest of the administration.
Mm-hmm.
The heads are the antithesis of the department.
Right, yeah.
This is just another example.
The only thing Bridenstine has in his favor as a qualification is that he can fly a jet.
Woo!
Yeah. He's qualified to be an airline pilot.
Yeah, he's qualified to fly a jet.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Possibly even qualified to be an astronaut. To fly, well, assuming we had things he could fly into space. But no, he's not qualified to run fucking NASA. Unfortunately, he is probably one of the most, if not the most, qualified people for the job that Trump has appointed so far. Which is,
that's so sad. But yeah, this administration is just so effed up.
Yeah.
It gets to the point where this kind of news is just, it's just your head banging against the wall.
I would actually include that. Okay, Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense. Not state. Jeff Sessions is qualified to be Attorney General. He's a lawyer. He has the academic and professional qualifications. He was disqualified from being a U.S. attorney because of the fact that he's a racist asshole. So he still shouldn't have been able to become Attorney General. Jim Mathis, the Secretary of Defense, he's a retired general. They had to get a waiver through the Senate to allow him to be appointed because federal law prohibits recent military from serving in senior civilian positions in the Pentagon to maintain the principle that our military should be run by civilians to keep military officers from running the country.
Yeah. Again, wall, head.
And for our final story, we've got a actually kind of happy one.
Yay.
Tammy Duckworth is a Iraq War veteran, double amputee, and a mom. She served in the U.S. House of Representatives and was a member of the House when she had her first child. And she just recently had her second child while serving in the U.S. Senate.
That's a big fucking deal.
That is the first time ever that a senator gave birth. However, Senate rules bar children from being allowed on the Senate floor. Or at least they did. Which would mean she would have a harder time being able to attend votes.
Right. It's an automatic out if you have to breastfeed.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, if you have to bottle feed, I mean, it's just kind of part of your job as a mom, and it should. There's everywhere else in the country there are rules that aren't, anti-discriminatory against women who breastfeed.
Now, in the case of the Senate, this had never been a problem before.
Never been a problem, so they never even thought about it.
There has never been a senator before who was breastfeeding.
It makes sense. You don't want toddlers running around and stuff. Mm-hmm. So, of course, you'd have some rule about children. But, yeah, I'm glad they
So, the new rule, which passed by unanimous consent, meaning there was no vote, that was one of those, if nobody objects, the motion passes.
Yeah, you better not speak up.
And everybody,
misogynistic asshole.
Yeah, the misogynist assholes kept their mouths shut.
Good for them.
And
they get to keep their balls for one more day.
And the Senate rules were amended to allow her, until her child is 1 year old, to come onto the Senate floor with her.
Aww.
Which means when they have all-day sessions, when they go late into the night, she can feed her baby. That's all this was about.
Yep.
Now, it is notable that there were a few responses. Duckworth, of course. She responded that the Senate is leading by example and sending the important message that working parents everywhere deserve family-friendly workplace policies. These policies aren't just a women's issue. They are a common-sense economic issue.
Booyah.
Damn right.
You don't want to impede 50% of the populace.
Senator Amy Klobuchar.
I love it when you try to pronounce these names. There's
Klobuchar, Democrat from Minnesota, top Democrat on the Rules Committee, said, "We are proud to have Senator Tammy Duckworth, working mom to a newborn among our ranks, and I'm glad the Rules Committee was able to swiftly make this historic rule change for her and future senators. Because yes, there will be more moms on the Senate."
Yes.
She also added, being a parent is a difficult job and the Senate rules shouldn't make it harder.
All right. Yeah.
Senator Pat Roberts, Republican from Kansas, didn't object to the rule, but he did say that he didn't think it was necessary to allow babies on the Senate floor.
He didn't get it.
Nope.
Or he is just very sneakily hiding the fact that he doesn't think it's appropriate.
There's Dick Durbin, Democrat from Illinois. Said that it'll do us good every once in a while to see a pacifier next to the antique ink wells on our desk or a diaper bag. Perhaps the cry of a baby will shock the Senate at times into speaking out and even crying out on the issues that confront our nation and the world.
Aw, that's so optimistic. That's sweet.
And then there's Senator Jim Inhofe, Republican from Oklahoma, who said, they don't use diaper bags anymore. They're disposable diapers. I know because I've got 20 kids and grandkids.
Oh, okay. I was going to say 20 kids. Jesus. Yeah, well, they have diaper backpacks.
And
where do you think he stashed all those disposable diapers? I don't know. That's cute. I bet his grandkids are like, what? Shut up.
Does he not understand what a diaper bag is?
No, he doesn't.
After 20 kids and grandkids, you think he would understand diaper bags.
That is the willful ignorance of the elite male. You don't have to deal with the kid stuff, you don't.
Yeah.
You can pay somebody else to do that.
Yeah.
Or have your wife be a slave at home, popping up babies. But But yeah, I have a backpack. I love it. It's got more pockets than I need, but I'm sure they will fill up as the child becomes older.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One thing that is sad is this resolution had to be submitted by Duckworth, but she was the one who felt the need for it.
Yeah.
And it took less than a week to pass.
That's amazing for these guys. So that's, that was great. That was good.
Yeah. So on that note, remember, not all those who wander are lost. Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/atheistnomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.